Hey folks, here at OS and VTXReviews.com. You're watching our video review of the Samsung Galaxy S3 in 2014/2015, and today we're answering the question whether or not this phone is still worthy of your attention in today's marketplace. Now, I would say that the short answer to this question would be yes, it still is a worthwhile smartphone, especially if you are on a budget and looking for a mid-range kind of Android smartphone. As long as you don't expect the most high-end specs, the most cutting-edge processor, the phone still is fairly powerful for browsing the web, watching YouTube videos, and playing back the occasional games and apps without too much stutter or lag, and it still performs pretty well in terms of camera, specs, the screen, and the design. So if you are looking for a nice deal, it still is a pretty good phone to go with. Now we're going to kind of jump in depth and take a look at, really the reason why behind the different facets of the smartphone. In terms of design, the Samsung Galaxy S3 is still a pretty nice looking phone. It still looks fairly modern as well because it offers a nice and large 4.8-inch Super AMOLED touchscreen display, which is capable of 720p HD resolution. It displays extremely vibrant and saturated images and colors, which provides for a very satisfying experience when watching videos and text and browsing the web. However, as with most AMOLED screens, direct sunlight usage is a little bit weak, and you'll find that if you want to use the device under the sun, like on the beach, it's going to get pretty washed out. Something I do like about Samsung screens is that it's kind of concurved on the Galaxy S3. What I mean by that is that it's like a bit of a pebble or a bubble, in the sense that it starts out kind of flat, but then it starts going upwards towards the center of the phone. Then it slowly goes downwards again. So it provides for a very sleek experience. It's not really discernible by the human eye, but when you're using your fingers, it feels very smooth when running through the surface of the device, and that's because the screen itself, or the glass, isn't completely flat, but rather it has kind of these curved edges, which makes it feel really nice for swiping gestures when you're using the phone. Otherwise, the phone is protected by Corning's Gorilla Glass 2. However, it is a huge fingerprint magnet. It's going to attract a lot of smudges and grit and dust. The top of the device features kind of this brushed metal finish, even though it is going to be plastic, and you have access to the 2.0 megapixel front-facing camera that actually produces very, very good selfies, very, very good images, and that's quite important because Samsung's Galaxy S3 has this face unlock feature where you have to put the phone up to your face for the device to get unlocked if you want to use that as one of the security options. So it produces pretty good images even in darker environments. There's also a proximity sensor for some of the gesture support. It actually has some features like eye support where you can have the screen turn on as long as you're looking at it. You can also wave at the screen for different gestures, just like on more modern day Samsung devices. So as far as those kind of nifty tricks and little features that Samsung has built in, it still remains pretty unique and pretty relevant because other manufacturers have not gone to the extent that Samsung has in terms of building in all these little nifty tricks up the phone sleeve. Otherwise, the bottom of the device features that one-click control button, and you also have access to two hardware keys that correspond to the menu and the back, and they are touch-sensitive and backlit as well, which is pretty nice. The left-hand side of the product features a volume rocker. It's a pretty slim phone in terms of portfolio, rather lightweight as well because it's made out of plastic, but nevertheless it feels pretty sturdy in the hand. The top of the device features a 3.5mm headphone jack for listening to music. There's also stereo Bluetooth 4.0 on board, and in addition to NFC, so you can use it to share and beam information with other Samsung and NFC-supported phones like speakers and the such. There's also a secondary microphone for noise isolation. The right-hand side of the device features access to the power on and off switch, the semi-concurved design, which I think is pretty cool, and also the bottom features access to a micro USB for charging and syncing. The phone has 16GB of internal storage built in, which is enough for most folks, but you can always expand the memory by using Dropbox as a virtual storage on the web, but you can also use and expand by putting a micro SD card behind the back cover, which is hot swappable even when the phone is turned on, to an additional 32GB. So it's a lot of storage options for this phone, which is pretty nice. The back panel is made out of plastic. It's a little bit flimsy and it's also a huge fingerprint magnet, but at the very least it looks quite interesting and also has access to the 8.0 megapixel autofocus enabled camera that produces 720p HD videos, a mono speaker that's pretty loud, and also an LED flash. So overall pretty cool, pretty decent specs and also design. So it still remains pretty relevant as far as looks are considered, which we are excited about. turning the device back over, again, this product is still pretty much filled to the brim with features. So if you are worried about purchasing this phone because it no longer has all of the latest and greatest kind of features, I would say that you probably should think again, because the Samsung Galaxy S3 still has quite a lot going for it, especially since Samsung just recently updated the phone to Android 4.4 KitKat, which is the most up-to-date and recent version of Android available. So essentially you still have full software support from Samsung as well. So it still is very much up to date as far as the software department is considered. This is a over-the-air update, so it's going to be pushed automatically. And of course you can see it is running pretty smoothly on the phone without any hiccups or slowdowns, which is pretty nice. Underneath the hood, we have access to a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core chipset, which is a pretty good processor as far as most day-to-day tasks are considered. Again, about 2 years ago when the phone was first released, it was a cutting-edge processor, but now it's only middle of the line. Thankfully, the US variant here offers 2 gigabytes of RAM storage. That's a pretty good amount of memory for the RAM, and it still remains one of the standards even in flagship smartphones in 2014, so it has enough storage for day-to-day tasks. As far as the UI experience is considered, the S3 of course runs on Samsung's TouchWiz user interface. This is going to be a hit or a miss depending on the type of user that uses this kind of interface. And for me, I personally pretty much like it, but some people might not, because Samsung TouchWiz has a lot of different details and animations here and there, so it's not a pure experience as far as Android phones are considered. So it's a pretty good kind of first smartphone experience, especially if you're new to smartphones, because it's going to be very easy to use, pretty simplistic, but at the same time, Samsung installs it with so many different features, so many of their custom bloatwares and apps, that it might get a little bit confusing because of the sheer amount of contents and settings that you get onto the phone. Taking a closer look at some of the preloaded apps from the Sprint version that we have here includes some features by Samsung, including Samsung Link, which allows you to link the product's display via Samsung Beam onto your other Samsung televisions and products to share information. There's also Sprint Hotspot, Sprint Zone, Samsung Video, Samsung Voice Recorder. You have the YouTube app. We have a Samsung Hub for more Samsung applications. There is a VPN client as well. There's DLNA support for music, which is kind of nice. Again, we have NFC, Bluetooth 4.0, GPS, Wi-Fi, 4G LTE, all of those services that we've come to expect from a device. So pretty much in terms of connectivity, it's still top of the line, still very much current. Again, the screen is pretty easy to read under darker environments, and especially easy to read indoors, which is, as you can see here, provides pretty sharp images, very, very good viewing angles, and very deep blacks and very rich colors and tones. So it is pretty impressive for watching videos. And 4.8 inches, in my opinion, still is a pretty good size. So it offers a nice balance between portability and also having a nice large screen for you to browse the web with and also to watch YouTube videos with. Some other applications, including the standard WebKit web browser, Google Maps. We have the special S Voice, which is Samsung's answer to Siri, and it provides a voice-guided experience. There's also Google Now, which kind of is the same thing now, but back in the day, Samsung's S Voice came first. There's also the S Memo, which is Samsung's kind of memo pad, Samsung's Paper Artist, which is pre-installed, and a file manager for you to read back different things you can plug and play into the micro USB ports, because it supports OTA different cards as well. The phone also supports QI wireless chargers if you plug in the corresponding cards onto the back, so it can be used as a wireless device in terms of charging as well, which is pretty nice. Of course, we have some more Samsung services, Samsung Suggest, and of course access to the standard Google Play Store. And of course, we also have a lot more different widgets that are kind of included. You have Flipboard, for example, that's pre-included as the application on the product, which is pretty useful. And all of these different widgets, including Dropbox, Gmail, email, group play, hangouts, that are pre-included by Samsung, which is a nice selection that you can pick and choose from. Again, TouchWiz is a pretty nice interface. It's pretty smooth. It runs still pretty well on the system. You can see how it has this kind of kinetic, dimensional home screen experience where if you reach the end of one page, it automatically cycles back to the first page, so you can go in a continuous cycle. Battery life on the phone is kind of one of the weaker facets on the Samsung Galaxy S3. The battery capacity is actually pretty good, but however, I will say that it is sometimes it will kind of run out over 1 day of usage if you use it to make a few phone calls, if you browse the web a bit. So if you want something that's going to last you for perhaps 2 or 3 days, you can definitely find a better smartphone out on the market with a larger capacity battery than this particular model. I will say that the web browsing experience on the product, it still works very, very well. You can see pages load extremely quickly, complex pages load without a hiccup, and pinch to zoom is almost instantaneous. The device also has different modes as far as rotating the screen. We have a traditional accelerometer, which allows you to rotate the screen corresponding to the orientation. But of course, there's also something called this kind of eye sensor, which is interesting. In addition to having the phone turn itself, never really dim the screen when you're looking at it, it also has a sensor to detect your face's orientation. So instead of using the gravity sensor to rotate the screen, the camera is constantly searching your face, and when it realizes that your face is no longer in the same orientation, the actual display will also rotate. So essentially it does the same thing as the accelerometer, but in a different way. So you actually have two different ways just to kind of rotate the screen, corresponding to how you change and hold a phone, which is kind of interesting. So again, a ton of different features and almost endless customization from Samsung. So again, in terms of web browsing, a very impressive experience. Flash is natively supported, so you can play back YouTube videos directly from the device's native web browser without a hiccup, which is pretty nice. 4G LTE, of course, the fastest in terms of cellular connection. As far as sound quality is considered as a phone, the Samsung Galaxy S3 produces some pretty good audio quality, especially with the dual noise cancellation features. Microphone sounds were crisp and accurate, and the speakerphone was also quite loud. Reception was also pretty decent. Sometimes it got a little bit weak here in Seattle, but overall it wasn't anything too bad, and we found ourselves to be pretty much always in an area with some type of reception. Bluetooth also works without a hiccup with our wireless speakers, and music playback on it was a pretty nice experience as well. Again, you have these different tasks you can kind of look through. Some more features on here, you can toggle back and forth between quick shortcuts, including the S-Beam function to, again, share your screen between two different Samsung flagship smartphones, NFC support for paying with Google Wallet, hands-free, also screen mirroring, multi-window mode, which also works pretty well. You can open actually different windows at the same time, and then you have the ability to, again, almost multitask between your different windows. So it is a pretty nice experience that definitely works over here. So for example, now we have two separate kind of applications open. On here we have our email client, and up here we have access to our web browsing experience. So overall, pretty nice experience as far as having two different screens and having that functionality on board. Another feature here, of course, is the aforementioned Smart Stay. Again, allows the device's screen to always turn on or never really dim itself as long as you are looking at the screen. During testing, we found this feature to work pretty well, even in today's standards. It kind of senses your eyes every 30 seconds or so, and if you're looking at the screen, it's not going to dim itself. But if you look away, it's automatically going to start dim itself, which is a nice feature to have if you want to conserve battery. It's also a nice kind of magic trick to play on your friends, and it's a fairly cutting-edge feature even in today's standards. So a lot of different software tips that have been upgraded and have been installed by Samsung are still able to be used in today's standards. So fairly impressive in that department. And essentially that's it. I would say that, again, you do still have access to all your most popular applications. Flipboard still works flawlessly. We still have access to all your different games. Angry Birds still runs flawlessly. Even some graphic intensive games like Tanks still would work pretty well without any hiccups. And as long as you don't expect kind of instantaneous performance, it still works very, very well. I'm going to show you really quick how some of the Samsung apps still work in today's standards. For example, we can take a look at S-Voice. It works pretty well. It's kind of like Siri, but it isn't as advanced, I would say. So for example, if I wanted to try this, I would say, what is the best Android smartphone? And then it would start thinking, and then it would give me a response.
What is the best Android smartphone?
So as you can see here, it's going to automatically prompt you and go to the web and search up different clients. So overall, it's a pretty fast experience, and it definitely works very, very well. Everything is well designed. Everything functions well. Not too much of a hiccup here either. And S-Memo also works pretty well as a note-taking or annotation device. You can see you can draw different icons. There's actually a special stylus you can purchase for this product. It isn't an active Wacom digitizer, but it still works pretty well for note-taking if that's your thing. You can also read ebooks, of course, on this device as well. So essentially that is, I guess, most of the features on the product itself, and essentially it all works pretty well. Something else about the Sprint version that should be noted is that it also works with Freedom Pop, and Freedom Pop is a free kind of cell phone provider service. So if you want to use that, you have the ability to kind of have 200 minutes of free talk time every month if you no longer want to use the a plan with Sprint either, which is another option to go with if you are looking into that. As far as the camera is considered, I would say it still produces some pretty good shots. 8 megapixels isn't the largest resolution, but images are well saturated, and it also provides a nice amount of flash for the flash. It also has the panorama mode, so quite a bit of features on board. It's very easy to take a snap. It's very easy to toggle between different settings, between the different brightness controls, between different HDR modes, low light modes, effect modes, and everything considered. It still is a pretty good experience. One of the best cameras still on the market. So overall, the Samsung Galaxy S3, again, you can get it today for only $120 without a contract, so essentially unlocked for $120. And at that price range, I still think it beats most of the other Android or new Android phones for that money because it has such a great screen, it has pretty good performance, it has Android 4.4 KitKat that has been upgraded over the air, it has a great camera, a pretty good fit and finish in the hand, and a whole host of features either for advanced users and for kind of new smartphone users alike. And so if you are looking for a budget-oriented smartphone in today's standards, I would say the Samsung Galaxy S3 is still a good candidate for you to go and check out. So you can check out our kind of new updated review on the Samsung Galaxy S3 on our website at osandbtxreviews.com. But otherwise, this has been our video look back review at the Samsung Galaxy S3. And in essence, we would say that yes, this phone is still worth it if you're considering it as a mid-end smartphone in 2014 to 2015. Thanks for watching here at osandbtxreviews.com and also our brother site at OS Tech News.